Okay, so you want to own a nuclear power plant. You've got the money, you've got the ambition, and honestly, the math looks insane. A single reactor can power a city of 1 million people for 30 years. The fuel is smaller than a suitcase, and once you flip the switch, the electricity practically prints money around the clock. Rain or shine, day or night, whether the wind blows or not. So you wire the money, you sign the papers, you shake hands with the government officials, and then you wait and wait and wait. Because here's the thing nobody told you before you handed over the check. The nuclear power plant you just bought doesn't exist yet. And before a single atom splits, before a single kilowatt of electricity leaves the plant, you are going to spend the next 15 to 20 years in the most expensive, most bureaucratic, most terrifying construction project in human history. Welcome to the nuclear business,
where the upside is unlimited and the downside is a crater. Let's start with the price tag, because it's the kind of number that makes your accountant need to lie down. A single nuclear reactor in the United States costs somewhere between $20 and $30 billion to build. Not the whole plant, one reactor. The Vogtle plant in Georgia, the only nuclear plant currently under construction in America, was originally budgeted at $14 billion for 2 reactors. It finished at over $35 billion. Over budget by $21 billion. Over schedule by 7 years. You didn't buy a power plant. You bought a money pit with a control room. So why would anyone do this? Because when it works like nothing else on Earth. A nuclear reactor runs at roughly 90% capacity around the clock, every single day for 60 years. Solar panels work maybe 25% of the time. Wind turbines, 35%. Coal plants, 55%. Nuclear just runs, quietly, constantly, producing more electricity per square foot of land than any other energy source humans have ever invented.
And the fuel? Uranium. You need about 27 tons of uranium per year to run a large reactor. A coal plant burning the same electricity would need 3 million tons of coal. The uranium fits on a truck. The coal fills an entire train every single day, forever. So the operating costs, once you're actually running, are incredibly low, somewhere around $30 per megawatt hour. Natural gas sits around $50. Nuclear looks cheap. The problem is what happens before you get there. Construction is only part of the nightmare. Before you build, you need a license from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. That process takes between 3 and 8 years. You'll need geological surveys, environmental impact studies, public hearings, safety reviews, and a full detailed engineering plan for a building that cannot, under any circumstances, ever fail. Because failure in this industry doesn't mean a factory shuts down. Failure means Chernobyl. Failure means Fukushima. Failure means an area the size of a city becomes uninhabitable for the next 300 years.
So the regulations are brutal, and they should be. But brutal regulation has a cost. Every change in safety requirements, and they change constantly, means redesigning systems mid-construction. Mid-construction redesigns cost months. Months cost hundreds of millions of dollars. The Vogtle plant didn't go $21 billion over budget because anyone was being careless. It went over budget because the industry had been dormant for 30 years. The skilled workforce had evaporated. The supply chains had collapsed. And every new safety standard required starting sections of the work over from scratch. You're starting to regret the handshake, aren't you? But here's where the story gets strange. The countries that figured this out aren't struggling at all. France built 56 reactors between 1974 and 1989. Not 56 total, 56 in 15 years. They standardized the design. Same reactor, same parts, same supplier, same engineers, over and over again.
Today, 70% of France's electricity comes from nuclear power. Their electricity is among the cheapest in Europe. Their carbon emissions from electricity are among the lowest in the developed world.
South Korea built reactors on time and on budget throughout the 1990s and 2000s. They exported the technology to the UAE. 4 reactors, finished, on time, under budget, producing electricity right now. The difference isn't the technology. The technology is the same. The difference is the system around the technology. The industrial base, the trained workforce, the standardized design, the regulatory stability. America forgot how to do it. France never did. So now we get to the question you've been waiting for. If you get through construction, if you survive the budget overruns, if your plant goes online and starts producing electricity, do you actually make money? Yes, massively. A large reactor produces about 1,000 megawatts of electricity. At current U.S. electricity prices, that's roughly $300 million in revenue per year. Operating costs? Fuel, maintenance, staff, a small army of nuclear engineers run about $150 million. That's $150 million in operating profit every year for 60 years. $9 billion in operating profit over the life of the plant from one reactor.
The math is extraordinary. The build cost is so enormous that Wall Street won't finance it without government loan guarantees. But if the government backs the loan, if you get through construction, if the regulatory environment holds, you own essentially a private mint that runs on uranium. Which brings us to the final problem, the one that nobody in the industry has fully solved: the waste. Every year, your reactor produces about 30 tons of spent nuclear fuel. It's still radioactive. It will still be radioactive in 10,000 years. You cannot bury it in the backyard. You cannot dump it in the ocean. You cannot simply make it disappear. In the United States, there is no permanent storage facility for high-level nuclear waste. None. The proposed facility at Yucca Mountain in Nevada was approved by Congress, blocked by Nevada's senators, and has been in bureaucratic limbo for 30 years. Right now, spent nuclear fuel from 93 American reactors is sitting in temporary storage pools at the plants themselves. Pools that were designed for 5 years of storage. Pools that have been holding fuel for 50. The plant you just bought comes with a waste management obligation that will outlast your grandchildren's grandchildren. You will pay into a decommissioning fund your entire operating life, somewhere between $500 million and $2 billion, to dismantle the plant safely when it finally stops running. Decommissioning takes between 10 and 20 years. Some of the early American reactors decommissioned in the 1990s are still being cleaned up. So here's where you actually stand. You spent $20 to $30 billion and 15 years before your plant produced a single electron. You will spend $150 million a year running it. You will earn $300 million a year selling electricity. After 60 years, you will spend another billion tearing it down. And somewhere along the way, you will figure out what to do with 30 tons of fuel per year that stays dangerous longer than human civilization has existed. And yet, every serious energy analyst looking at climate change comes to the same uncomfortable conclusion. If the world wants to get rid of fossil fuels, actually get rid of them, not just build solar panels on weekends, it probably needs nuclear power plants, not instead of renewables, alongside them, as the steady, always-on backbone that keeps the lights on when the sun goes down and the wind stops blowing. The technology is not the problem. It works. It has worked for 60 years. The problem is that building nuclear power plants became so expensive, so slow, so tangled in regulation and politics and public fear that the world mostly stopped trying.
And now a new generation of companies, NuScale, TerraPower, X Energy, are betting that smaller reactors, factory-built, modular, mass-produced like the French did it, but even cheaper, will finally crack the equation. If they're right, whoever owns that technology owns the energy market for the next 100 years. If they're wrong, well, you'll need a bigger pool.